How we doing, everybody? It's Wardy here, and as you guys can see, we're back at it with a jam-packed show this evening, breaking down the latest in Mets land. That being Thursday, March 19th, 2026, and it's headlined by the fact that Senga, Luis Robert, and Bichette, what do they have in common? They all had really good outings for the New York Mets and the Mets spring training victory that we just saw against the Houston Astros. So we're not only going to recap that game and get into these individual player performances, but we're also going to break down the Mets spring breakout game in which their top prospects, headlined by guys like A.J. Ewing, Jack Wenninger, and Elian Pena, just to name a few, stepped up in their respective matchup as well. From there, we're going to get into the Mets' key roster moves and what this means for Mauricio now that we are right around a week away from opening day. We're not only going to get into Ronnie, the expectation with him, other roster moves on the pitching end, and ultimately, what is going on with Francisco Alvarez. I know that's likely why you clicked on this video. I, too, am still in limbo, and we will have results as to what is happening with Alvy by the time we get to the end of this recording. So make sure you stay all the way until the very end. I'll make sure there's timestamps too, so if you want to go right ahead to that, and that's the most important information for you, that's completely fine. Is Alvarez going to be on the shelf with injury? What happened with him? Why was he pulled from today's Mets game? I'm stressed out just like you, so let's go ahead and deep dive it all. Just make sure to hit that like and subscribe on your way, and let me know your thoughts, reactions, and analysis in the comments down below regarding the following topics. And make sure, as always, to check out our amazing sponsor, that being at SeatGeek, that has you covered for all of your ticketing needs. So, folks, whether you need Mets tickets for the final week of spring training games, regular season tickets with opening day right around the corner, I hope to see you amazing Mets fans there for anything and everything in the ticketing space. Simply check out SeatGeek and use our promo code today, WARDY10, that way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase. And thank you guys kindly for doing exactly that. Link down below. Again, WARDY10 for 10% off down below. Now, let's hop right into this, everybody, and let's begin with, I would say, both. It's a bittersweet thing because I'm very happy for him, but I'm also distraught a bit as a Mets fan because I don't know how I'm going to be able to handle myself without this man in the Mets realm as much as he was. But let's listen in. Let's react as Mets fans to the official announcement today by Howie Rose himself. Listen up.
Hi, Howie Rose here. Excited as always about the beginning of another Mets season. In fact, I've been blessed to be a part of Mets broadcasts in one capacity or another since 1987. And every season's been unique and significant in its own way. This year, though, will be especially meaningful to me because 2026 will be my final season in the Mets broadcast booth. Now, trust me, I did not arrive at this decision to retire easily. I've been going back and forth in my mind about it for the last few years. But the simple reality is that I'm 72 years old, and my wife, Barbara, who has sacrificed so much for so long, deserves to have her husband around a little more often, whether she likes it or not. I'm not planning on making a clean break. Hopefully I'll be involved now and then in some still to be determined capacity, because for me, letting go of the Mets isn't hard. It's impossible. And one of the biggest reasons for that is the bond that we've created with each other through all these years. The warmth, acceptance, and yes, love that you've shown me in so many ways for so long makes this all the more difficult. And I return those feelings in kind. This year, I'll be in the booth for all of the home games, plus the 3 at Yankee Stadium, and of course, every game home and away during the postseason. You know, I'm always honored to start the season by emceeing opening day at Citi Field. But this year in particular, I would like nothing better than to bookend that by serving as master of ceremonies on the steps of City Hall after a trip down the Canyon of Heroes immediately following the season. That would make this dream that I've lived complete. So thanks for everything, and I'll see you on opening day.
So there it is from Howie Rose himself, everybody, letting you know that this is officially his last year as the Mets play-by-play man there in the radio booth. Now, one, I'm not surprised to hear this. We have known that this has been a slow build-up to get to this point over the past number of years, not only because obviously health is a very important thing for Howie as he's not getting any younger, and also when you look at guys like Rad and McCarthy who have done a tremendous job in the booth with Howie over the past number of years, especially covering games on the road, you know, this is going to be, I think, a seamless transition from, you know, passing baton from Howie to the next. But I will say this much. There will never, ever, ever be another Howie Rose to ever grab the mic covering the Mets again. And the first thing that I think of when I think of Howie Rose is not just the amazing calls that he has done throughout my entire Mets fandom. You know, you think most recently at the home run call there, what Alonso against Devin Williams in the wild card 2 years ago. You also think of just the countless big moments time and time and time again. You know, they got just everything about Howie Rose from a play-by-play standpoint and as a genuine fan reigns so true to me, and he's been a massive inspiration for not only my fandom, but in part what I do for you guys today as a Mets talking head and all these things in between. So I'm so happy for Howie and his wife and his entire family because I know that it's a bittersweet thing, but something that they're going to enjoy this transition to the next stage in his life now. But at the same time, man, oh man, there's never going to be a guy like Howie again. And it's not just the Mets coverage. It's also, I'm a New York Rangers fan. I know this is going to upset some of you Devils fans, but you guys have absolutely kicked our teeth in all year long, so I don't want to hear it. Let me have this, okay? 94. Mato! The New York Rangers have one more hill to climb, baby. Like, that will always ring true in my head as a New York Rangers and hockey fan. And that really set the table, you know, leading into now my Mets fandom. Because while I was not around in 94 to hear him say it live, I grew up with my hockey fandom being pretty much the first sports fandom that I was locked in with along with football before I got more locked in with the Mets as I became a young teen. So that is a lasting memory that I will always have. And then everything since then, since becoming a diehard Mets fan and locking in with Howie, I'm just grateful that I was a part of the ride somewhat. I know you guys feel the same. Let me know all your thoughts down below on Howie Rose officially making it known that his time with the Mets will be done as their play-by-play voice after the 2026 season has concluded. Now, good news, everybody. Actually, tremendous news. Fantastic news. Let's get into it right here, right now. Let's go ahead and break down the news that many of you guys and gals need to know, and that is regarding Francisco Alvarez, because we actually have the update. It just popped on my phone, and I don't want to waste time for you guys. You deserve to know it right away. So let's refresh here, and let's find out exactly what is happening with Alvarez, and thankfully, this is exactly what I was hoping for, okay? You guys can see this right here, right now. I'll get to those Tommy Pham remarks later. I was actually casually interacting with Tommy Pham on X today. That's just a random thing that happened. But Max Goodman, that you guys know, has been doing a very good job on the beat for the Mets for NJ.com. He states the following: Francisco Alvarez came out of today's game with a tight back. It was precautionary, Carlos Mendoza said. So, fantastic news. I can have a sigh of relief and breathe a bit now regarding Alvarez, because obviously when we first saw him exit the game today after the fourth inning, when he was supposed to play all 9 innings for the Mets, you're thinking the worst right away. You're thinking, oh, great, another hand injury. See you in a couple months, Alvy. And then we're going through the same cycle, song and dance, like it, never happened before, right? Well, thankfully, Alvarez, even though it's a tight back and you're not happy to hear that, I am very happy and grateful to hear that this was a precautionary reason and not for certain he had to be taken out of the game. Could he have played through it? Probably, but why risk potential injury when you have Alvarez a week away from opening day? He's looked tremendous all spring long. I've been constantly raving about Alvarez, as you should be as well, Mets fans, because his bat-to-ball skills has looked great. He's looked very composed with his at-bats. He's not this constant free swinger that we saw his first couple years, and he also doesn't look like he's shaking in his boots because Eric Chavez is looming over him with his big shadow saying, you gotta hit the ball opposite field even though you're a power hitter. Thankfully, Jeff Albert, who's doing a great job working with Alvy like what they did last year, JPR and Sebia working with him on his catching game too. As long as Alvarez can stay healthy, no doubt in my mind, this is going to be a tremendous year for him and very well might be his career year to this point. So we'll just have to wait and see, and God willing that Alvy's okay. But as long as it's just back tightness and it's precautionary, we can have a sigh of relief, take a deep breath, and move on as Mets fans. So you guys can let me know your thoughts about Alvarez and what appeared to be initially a concerning thing. Now, thankfully, we have clarity, and it does appear that, knocking on wood, he'll be okay. So going on from talking about that with Alvarez, let's now get into our next topic that I want to share, and that is regarding all the key takeaways in Mets land from their games today. After that, we'll get into Ronnie Mauricio, the Mets roster moves, and then we'll round out the show by going back to this post regarding Tommy Pham and some other numbers I think you guys will appreciate, along with some comments from Mets skipper Carlos Mendoza. So make sure you don't miss any of it. But let's begin right here, right now, everybody. Let's take this away. Let's put this back. And let's talk more on the Mets takeaways today, because we saw the Mets take down the Houston Astros today by a final score of 6-2 is your final. Not that spring training wins and losses mean anything, because they really don't. But the most important thing in spring training, especially a week before the season, is to really just evaluate how players are looking, how they're feeling. Are they still toying with their arsenals at all? Or are they, working on adjustments with their plate appearances, among other things. There are many things that we look for in spring training, but right now we just want guys to stay healthy and hopefully have a Mets lineup, which, as Carlos Mendoza said it himself today, what we just saw for the Mets is eerily similar to how the Mets lineup will be to begin the regular season. His Mets lineup today was as follows. Batting leadoff was Francisco Lindor at shortstop, and the 2-hole was Juan Soto, back from playing with Team Dominican Republic. Bo Bichette batting third, who I have a lot of good things to say about. Batting fourth was Jorge Polanco at first base, who I also have a lot of good things to say about. Then we also have Luis Robert, who I have a lot of great things to say about. Cue the trend here, obviously, and center field. Brett Beatty played both right field and third base today. I love that versatility. Marcus Semien at second base, and then Mark Vientos there, and Francisco Alvarez for 8 and 9. So I'll just, get the elephant out of the room. Mark Vientos did not record a hit today. He's down to .036 on his batting average this spring. He's looked terrible the entire spring between this and playing for Team Nicaragua, which is very unfortunate because I want Vientos to thrive. I want him to try to run with the limited opportunity he's going to get, but nothing is inclining me to believe that is going to happen at this point in time until he gives us a reason to suggest otherwise, because his performance speaks for itself. Right now, all we're seeing is a guy who looks more boxed out than ever with each passing day, regardless of the things that Mets skipper Carlos Mendoza says. You really think the Mets are going to give consistent reps to Vientos to begin the season? Maybe they will, but if he doesn't run with that right away, how much of a leash are they going to give him? Probably not as much as they have in years past, but again, to be determined. I'm not going to go out of my way to say something that isn't entirely that might be inaccurate in the end, so I'm just going to wait and see on the Vientos front, but a level of reservations and concerns, understandably so. And Vientos also grounded into a double play today, something that you don't love to see with someone like him because he's not lifting the baseball and he's constantly hitting on the ground. And when he's lifting the baseball, he's having terrible luck. Again, he might be smoking a ball on the warning track, but whether it's because of the wind or just because it was just shy, he isn't getting the results he's looking for. So let's talk about the guys and gals who got the results that they were looking for today, and that begins here with Luis Robert, okay? Of course I'm going to start by talking about Robert. I get comments all the time from schmucks saying, oh, Wardy has a crush on Robert. He's obsessed with this guy. I've been a fan of Robert longer than probably any of you guys watching this, unless you have really been locked in with him since the 2022 season, before he even broke out in 2023 the way that he did. So if you're in that category where if you've been following him the past 4+ years too, then you understand what I'm about to say. The floor versus ceiling is ginormous with a player profile like Robert, but that ceiling, getting a chance, getting close to touching that would do wonders and will do wonders for the New York Mets this year, both from an offensive, defensive, and base running standpoint. And what did Robert do today? Oh, he continued to hit big time. He went 2 for 4 with a run scored, and what I love so much about Robert today is he drove in a pair. Didn't have a strikeout, but that's okay. He's batting .333 this spring with an 800 OPS, which is nice because, again, not that you should really buy into spring training results much, but you're never complaining when you're seeing a player perform well, especially a guy that you want to see perform well. And when we talk about how did Robert fare today regarding how hard he smoked baseballs, well, if we get into this, everybody, Robert, did he have soft contact or hard contact today? Well, his pop-out was at 95 miles per hour. It was actually more soft contact because he had an opposite field double that went down more the first baseline that was able to drive in a run, if not two. And yeah, he didn't actually have too many ropes today in the game that I'm seeing. His double, was 75 miles per hour opposite field. So normally a guy in Robert who's known for not only putting the bat on the ball, but smoking it, wasn't the case today. He had 2 doubles, and neither of which were at all aggressive with the swing. You had a 63, roughly 64 mile per hour double, and then what I just stated there at 75 with the other. Either way, we're not complaining. Luis Robert's producing. That's never a bad thing. Now, beyond Robert, who were the other standouts in today's game we saw? Obviously, it's Bo Bichette. Bo had himself a fantastic day for the New York Mets, and what's notable about Bo Bichette today, in case you guys are wondering, is he's going to be playing shortstop tomorrow. And this is something that a lot of Mets fans have overreacted to because they're like, oh my God, I thought the Mets were going to play Bo Bichette at third base all spring. What's happening? Why would they do this? And there's a simple reason for it. I'm going to let Carlos Mendoza explain it, and then let's talk about it, okay? So listen up.
It's like Bichette is going to get a turn at shortstop. You just want to have him do it so he doesn't get rusty at it?
Yeah, so he's scheduled to play shortstop tomorrow. Just kind of get him a game there. That's his position, but as we get closer to decision making, right, I think it was important for Bo to give him some reps there in case we do go that route where he could potentially be our backup shortstop. And from the very beginning, he was very open. When Lindor went down, not knowing what the expectations and the timetable, he was very open and said, hey, I know third base is going to be the priority, but I can always go back and play short. I can play second, whatever the team needs. So he goes to show you that he's willing to do whatever we're asking him to do. So that's what we're giving him a game tomorrow.
So nicely said there by Mendy, and I love it. Shout out to Bo for being a gamer, putting himself out there and letting it known, saying, hey, let me go play a game at short for you guys. Not that I wouldn't be able to handle it prior. He's played short his entire career now. Does it pale in comparison with Lindor from a defensive standpoint? Absolutely. Bo Bichette, I've actually joked about over the years with the Blue Jays and stated how bad of a defender he was. I guess that's what I get now that all these years later he's officially a New York Met. But here's the thing. What have I been telling you guys for the past week? What have I stated in my latest Straight Out Flushing solo podcast for the New York Post in Manhattan in studio yesterday that you guys can check out if you haven't already? It's that the Mets bench this year is not going to have a true backup shortstop. But Bruhana is not making this Mets team, okay? And it's not going to be Christian Arroyo either. And before you ask, Wardy, why is that? I already have the answers for you. It's pretty simple. One, you have Bo Bichette, where if you really need him in a pinch, you can put him at short for a couple of games if, say, Lindor has a setback or just something doesn't go right, and then you have Beatty naturally start at third. Or you go down the route of Beatty and Polanco. These guys can handle limited stints at shortstop if called upon. Beatty's defense is so versatile that alone is why the Mets have a comfortability there, whether it's first, right field, third base, second base, maybe even short now. And then you also have someone, not just in him, but also in Jorge Polanco, who's continuing to impress and look very solid at first base. I don't have issues with Jorge Polanco. Polanco's actually looked really damn good this spring, which has me excited as we get set for the season. Again, not that spring training results are the end-all, be-all, but it's nice to see a player kind of continue a trend of what we saw him do last year, where he was a very productive hitter and a very quality player in general, a clutch player for those Mariners a year ago. So that's all I really have to say about it in regards to the situation with backup shortstop. There's been a lot of people very stubborn under the mentality, though. The Mets are going to have a backup shortstop on the team, but they're not going to. Okay? They're going to rock with 5 outfielders. Carson Bench and Mike Tauchman are going to be on this team. I don't know how many times I need to keep saying it until, you guys start believing me, but a good contingent you guys are. I'm noticing that. And to those that still do not understand, I don't know what else to tell you. I've been breaking it down nice and thorough and easy. The Michael Scott meme from The Office. Explain to me like I'm 5. I'm doing my best here to try to break it down simple. So that's what you guys need to know regarding the status of Lindor as we get set for opening day and where the Mets are going to lean towards a backup shortstop option if they really feel inclined to do so. Simply put, they're not going to put a guy on the roster, on the bench, just for the sake of doing so, even though maybe you're thinking that, well, that's what they're doing with Mark Vientos. I understand that counter to a degree, but I'll let you guys divulge in the comments down below regarding that. Now, to go on from talking about, this shortstop situation, let's talk about Bo Bichette's impressive day at the plate. Because as I said, he looked very good at the plate today. And what Bo did is just more of Bo, what he does. The cliche saying with Bo Bichette, Bo knows? Oh, Bo most certainly knows. And Bo had himself quite the day. He went 2 for 2 with 2 runs scored that we saw and also had a walk. And what I love so much about Bo Bichette is his continuation to be able to spread for all fields. He's not someone that absolutely has to be pulling the baseball. I see Bo constantly poking either up the middle or to the right side opposite field to have success. And that's in part what we saw today. So shout out to Bo Bichette. This spring training, he is now up to a 313 average and an 895 OPS. And that happens quickly when you just have a couple big games. He had a 5 RBI day for the Mets a day or so ago. So he's really heating up now, right as we get set for opening day. And all I'm telling you, Mets fans, is get ready. Bo Bichette's going to casually hit right around 300 this year, 20-plus home runs, 80-plus RBIs, and he's going to have a WRC plus with runners in scoring position, probably at least 30% above league average, if not higher. So all great things. That's why you're investing $42+ million in him this season before doubling that salary, essentially, because of the 110% Steve Cohen tax. But that's what you had in Bo. Love to see that. Looked perfectly fine in the hot corner. Another guy who looked perfectly fine in the corner infield, as I mentioned, is Jorge Polanco. I'm loving Jorge Polanco, and you should too, okay? Polanco today did more of the same. A 1 for 2 game with 2 runs scored and 2 walks. Casually went over 300 average and over 1,000 OPS this spring. Polanco hasn't looked like a massive defensive liability at all at first, nor has he looked like a liability with the bat either. Again, not that it really matters much in spring training, regardless of what he does, but it's nice to see Polanco be as productive as he was in this matchup especially. So Jorge did his thing, as well as Brett the Hitman, because of course Brett Beatty smoked himself a double today, because why wouldn't he? He goes 1 for 3 playing in right and at third base, 357 average, just under 1,000 OPS. Brett Beatty is going to be so valuable to the Mets this year because of not only that defensive versatility, but strong defensive versatility where he's actually a plus defender in various areas, and he has a bat that's shown you he can handle lefty pitching without problem. You want to know why? He smoked lefty pitching today. So not that the spring training result means everything, but you know what I think of when I think of Brett Beatty? I think of all these schmucks last season saying, oh, Brett Beatty can't hit lefties. We have to go about this platoon. No, we don't. Do you guys not remember that series in Boston when the Mets sadly were lifeless, but Brett Beatty stepped up, smoked a big hit off of Derek Crochet, also had a big hit against a Bernardino, who at the time was the best southpaw in the Red Sox bullpen to begin last season. He's been traded since, if I'm not mistaken. I think he actually got traded to Colorado, but don't quote me on that. This is a guy who can handle lefties and righties without an issue. Every single time I see Brett Beatty out there, he proves more and more and more how valuable of an asset he is to this New York Mets team. You guys let me know your thoughts about Mr. Brett the Hitman down below, because another guy who was productive today, drove in a couple runs but did not record a hit thanks to some sac flies, was Mr. Marcus Semien. Semien had a pair of RBIs, and even though he hasn't hit anything crazy this spring, I've been very encouraged with what I've seen from Marcus Semien this spring. I haven't looked at him and said, oh my God, we have a major problem here, because I'm not expecting Marcus to light up the lamp offensively. If he doesn't, awesome, great. But that's kind of one of those things where you know you're going to get such certainty defensively that Marcus can just clutch up with runners in scoring position. I don't mind if he's going to be like a 240 batting average this year. I really don't have an issue with that. Just produce kind of more in the moments when we need you to, and everything else will figure itself out in how deep of a lineup the Mets currently have. So those are the key standouts, everybody, from today's game for the New York Mets and their 6-2 victory. This is also how the ball game ended, not how it started lineup-wise, and it ended, as you guys can see there, with the following minor leaguers, that being Yoni Hernandez, Rudick, who went 0 for 2 as a pinch hitter / left fielder, Salgado and pinch hit / right field went 0 for 2, JT Schwartz 0 for 1 at first base, Kevin Villa. I always butcher the name Villa, but you guys know who I'm talking about. Center fielder right there. He did not record a hit today. Masquera at third base did not record a hit. Yan didn't record a hit. And Mark Vientos, who did not do anything today, didn't record it. And Auer, who came in at the end at catcher, went 1 for 2. So at least he was productive, so that's nice to see. But that's what you got from the Mets on the hitting end. Now on the pitching end, let's talk some Kodai Senga, okay? What a day for Kodai. Kodai has looked so effing good this spring. And this is where it is important to see spring results like this. Because, yes, you could say to yourself, well, Kodai Senga, he looks strong today, but look at the batters that he faced. Doesn't really matter. It does matter because it's about the stuff. Listen, Kodai Senga said it himself to the media today, verbatim in his post-game presser, that while he doesn't really take anything more than a grain of salt with his spring performance, he does care about how he physically feels and what the metrics are telling him. And he's saying that this is all the best that things have looked in quite some time. And he's right. Senga, after pitching 3 perfect innings for the New York Mets, last time out there, if not more, goes 4 shutty today, 3 hits, 0 earned runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, a 1.86 ERA. The 4-seam fastball did not top out at 99 like it did each of the previous 2 starts, but it did look good and did top out today that we saw roughly 98, like 97.5. So not bad at all. That's what you got on the velo there. He sat 95 on the 4-seam. He threw the ghost fork, the second most in his arsenal today, and sat 83 on it. The sweeper, he threw 19%, was sitting right around 81 miles per hour. The cutter, just under that, was around 90 miles per hour. Then the slider, 84. The curveball that he sat 67 on, which is hilarious. And the sinker at 87. This is prime Kodai Senga. He's throwing the kitchen sink at you for another start, another day where he's throwing 7 different effing pitches at you. This is what I want in Kodai Senga. This kind of variation with this difference in velocity going from as low as 66 to 67 miles per hour on the curveball to touching north of 99 on the gun with your heater. This is what's going to help him with so much swing and miss, setting up his pitches throughout the year, and not having to be overly reliant on one pitch if, say, things don't go as planned. Maybe he starts a game and he doesn't have the comfortability with his fastball he's hoping. Okay, then you get creative, and then you start to dip more into how much do you want to utilize that cutter? How much do you want to utilize that sinker among others. So Senga has perfectly positioned himself now for the New York Mets, where, as Juan Soto stated it himself best to the media today, he is unbelievably valuable to this rotation. And at his best, we know just how important he is. Listen up to what Juan Soto has to say about the value of Kodai Senga as long as he can stay healthy this season. Just give me 1 second as I pull it up, everybody.
What would it mean for you guys if Senga can stay healthy and pitch at a high level this year?
That's our ace. I mean, if he stays healthy, he's going to help the team to go all the way. Definitely, he has the stuff to do it. He just got to try to keep himself into the game.
What would it mean for you?
So Juan Soto making it known, Kodai Senga is our ace. Now, do I think people are going to run with this quote and make it out to be bigger than what it is? 100%. Anything Juan Soto says, people are going to have a reaction to. But to his point, Juan knows that the upside is ace pitcher with Kodai Senga. And the fact that he so casually called him their ace when he really didn't get to see Kodai for an extended period of time look his best last season tells me that Juan Soto may not actually know just how much better things could get for Kodai and the Mets this year. Of course, Soto faced Senga back in 2023 when he had his first year in the bigs as a NL Rookie of the Year and, Pitcher of the Year finalist that we saw, because he was in Cy Young contention in 2023. I mean, Senga has immense value to this team as long as he can perform as advertised. It's always the big question with someone like him, and it always comes down to health. But to hear these remarks from Soto is nice. It's encouraging. No, that's not a slight on guys like Freddie Peralta or Noel McLean at all. Before you guys go in the comments and have that stupid reaction, he's just making known that, yes, he's our ace. We know how important he is. We hope to see more of what we've seen this spring training. Now, beyond Kodai Senga, who, again, has looked very impressive, let's also talk briefly on the other pitchers that were in today's match with the New York Mets, because we had Luis Garcia, who yet again was solid. He allowed one unearned run, but he hasn't allowed an earned run all spring long. Garcia's made it known he's set for this Mets bullpen. You have Rosick, who came in after just for one out, and then Craig Kimbrell, who has decided not, key emphasis here, not opt out of his Mets contract. He had an opportunity today to opt out of his deal. He said no. And you want to know why he said no, I think? I think it's because Craig Kimbrell is going to make this Mets bullpen. That's what I think. Even though that Craig did, in fact, give up a run today, it doesn't change the fact that, he brings value to this Mets organization, even if it means that his value isn't as nearly as immense as the next reliever in this bullpen. I think Kimbrell is the first domino to be cut in a scenario where things don't go either his way or the Mets' way to begin the season. But the Mets don't need to have any long-term commitment to Kimbrell. I just, between himself and Brian Hudson, I think Craig Kimbrell, I said this yesterday, I'll say it again, I think he's going to be the man to round out this bullpen. I really don't have any doubt about it, regardless of him giving up a run today. He struck out 3. The velocity wasn't a major concern for him. Austin Warren looked good. Dickie Lovelady looked solid. I like Austin Warren a lot, and he's actually a sneaky arm I'm looking forward to the Mets considering more in at spurts this year, because whether it's because they need an extra man for the doubleheader, the 27th man, like what they did last year with them, or other circumstances. Warren, for, I believe he's like, top 6 foot? He's a smaller frame pitcher, so very impressive to see the kind of success he has, especially 3 strikeouts today, regardless of it being a spring game. And Dickie Lovelady, who's trying to compete for a Mets bullpen spot, did pitch a scoreless inning today. But if you had to pick between Craig Kimbrell and Dickie Lovelady to round out the Mets bullpen, I feel like a good contingent of you Mets fans would prefer Kimbrell, regardless of the fact that Lovelady would bring a lefty dimension into this pen, not named Brooks Riley right now. But I digress. This is what you guys need to know on the pitching end. The Mets did their job. So now let's talk more on the standouts from the highlights you see beside me. And that's the Mets spring breakout game that they had today, which was very, very entertaining to witness. Shout out to everyone that participated in that. Really, really cool. The first thing I noticed right away in the spring breakout game was our dog, AJ Ewing, who we all know is going to be making his major league debut this year at minimum. What did Ewing do today? As soon as he got to the plate, he, of course, smoked a baseball the best way he knows how. I will continue to rave about AJ Ewing. This kid's the real deal, and he, along with Nick Morbido, are reasons as to why the Mets maybe aren't going to commit to a guy like Tyrone Taylor all year long, because you just see the value in AJ Ewing. He's looked tremendous. I mean, he got himself that one hit today, going 1 for 3 at center field, but the defense looks strong. The bat-to-ball skills look good. He smoked that baseball when he made his hit, and beyond that, Elian Pena also smoked a baseball over 100 miles per hour, which is notable because Pena is our top IFA prospect that we signed in January of 2025 to a $5 million fat signing bonus, the largest signing bonus in Mets franchise history at this point for an IFA signing. And Pena, he's like, what, 19, 20 years of age right now? He's so young, it's ridiculous. And I really am excited to see more of him. He had a walk and have that hit as well. Jacob Reimer, who thrived big time in the Mets farm last year, will be a guy that will probably make his debut this year, whether he's at third base or DH. Reimer, who looked awesome all last season that we saw. He had himself a hit today as well. Ryan Clifford did not record a hit, but he did get on base at least once with a walk. Nick Morabito didn't do too much that we saw on this one. And Jack Weniger is the standout on the pitching end because Jonathan Santucci also looked good, so we'll talk about them both briefly. But Jack Weniger allowed 1 earned run, struck out 6 in 3.2 innings, and he has a 2.45 ERA this spring. Jack did his thing, and he's a guy that I fully anticipate the Mets to consider at the major league level before even Jonathan Santucci this year. And Santucci I like a lot, and I do think that he is someone that could fill the shoes of a David Pearson or a Sean Manaea should things go awry with either this season, which we're kind of inevitably waiting for, sadly. And not that I wish it, but you know what I'm trying to say. Santucci won 3.2 innings, allowed 1 unearned run, 0 earned runs, 2 walks, but 5 strikeouts for the young southpaw. So the Mets, from their starter types in today's outing, produced, and they looked very good. And expand more on Jack as to how he looked today per pitch profiler. He looked solid. He was above league average on his changeup today. Right around league average on most pitches he threw, from the 4-seam to the changeup to the sinker to the curveball. And let's see there, and the slider. And he sat today right around 95, touching 97 plus on the gun with the velo. And he looked pretty good on his entire array of pitches. You know, he kind of had more of that slurve curve instead of it being a traditional curve that led to some success today. The changeup was rock solid too. So things being encouraged by what these young Mets prospects, who again are trying to impact the Mets as soon as this calendar season. So now that we have broken down the key standouts from the spring breakout game as well as the Mets game in general, let's go on and let's get into our next topic, and that is going to be regarding the Mets roster moves. Because as you guys and gals can see here, the Mets have made the official moves that, yes, Ronnie Mauricio and Joey Gerber have been officially optioned to AAA. Mike Baumann and Brandon Waddell have been reassigned to minor league camp. So none of this should be a surprise, okay? And I'm going to call them out because they're schmucks. I'm not going to say the YouTube channel name, but it popped up on my timeline, and I just have to shout them out because they are literally, in my opinion, the most heinous and egregious channel in all this Mets-related space for the most, pardon my French, bullshit titles imaginable. You know, shocking update, shocking report regarding Ronnie Mauricio. No, it's only shocking if you're not even a Mets fan and you're just talking about them because you're trying to make content, which is what they do. They don't actually have genuine Mets fans that make their content. I'm shitting on them so bad right now because of the fact that I'm fed up with it. I'm so frustrated when I see stuff like that, when it's like, dude, anyone that is rational, anyone that actually pays attention to the club knows that Ronnie Mauricio being sent down was a near certainty from the start of spring training. Maybe you personally as a fan didn't feel that way, but it's also because you likely weren't paying attention. And I don't mean that rudely, I mean it honestly. I cover this team every single day and have entering my 6th season. I like to think that I have a decent grasp as to what's going on with the club. And Ronnie Mauricio was never someone that was really going to make this team out of camp for this exact reason alone, as Carlos Mendoza has stated, but I've said verbatim to each and every one of you for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. Listen up.
What was the decision to send Mauricio to AAA? He'd been having a pretty good camp.
Yeah, I think now we're getting to those days when we have to make those tough decisions, and this was one of them. We said it from the beginning. We need Ronnie Mauricio to play. And for him right now, with everyone, knock on wood, healthy, right? He needs to go down to AAA and get everyday reps. Very pleased with how he went about his business, what he showed here in camp. Not only he's healthy, but his ability to play shortstop. He got a lot of reps there, and he played pretty well. So that's exciting. The fact that not only third base, but keeping shortstop as an option is going to be huge for him and for us moving forward.
Now, why would Carlos Mendoza go out of his way to reiterate the value as a backup shortstop? Well, I think what I just said stated in itself, right? If Ronnie can establish himself as the true backup shortstop for Lindor, then that would further warrant him being on the team. Maybe not as much to take reps away from Lindor, but just knowing that you actually have more certainty that he can handle that position. But My honest reaction to this is just perfectly setting up the Mets to trade Ronnie Mauricio at some point this year, okay? And they really viewed Ronnie as a future fixture in the organization, as someone who was going to have a role, like specifically maybe at third base after what could potentially be a one-and-done year with Bichette. I'd imagine that they would be far more inclined to try to consider Ronnie more consistently at the hot corner for reps moving forward. And the reason why they're not doing that again is because you maximize the value in a young player like this when they're at a premier position of shortstop and build their defensive games the way that Ronnie clearly is doing at the moment. So there's a reason why I had Ronnie Mauricio in my video yesterday breaking down Mets that very well could be traded this year. And it's not a slight on Ronnie, but I think he falls in an eerily similar category now to Jet Williams and Luis Angel Acuna, if he hadn't already, as guys that just don't have immediate paths to the Mets here. So how much longer are the Mets going to just kind of keep them, in this quad A position where they're pretty much too good for AAA, but not a guy that you can comfortably have out there every single day at the major league level? Maybe it's because you don't like him batting from the right side of the plate, which I wouldn't fault you for. I think he is best as a true lefty hitter and not a switch hitter. We'll see if he ever changes that in his career or not, like Cedric Mullins did back in the 2021 season or so for the Baltimore Orioles. If you know, you know. But Ronnie's value, we know it's strong. But in order for it to continue to uptick and to be of value to the Mets this year, have to make sure that he gets consistent reps, stays healthy, and isn't just stored on the bench the way that the Mets selfishly did last year because they didn't want to use his final minor league option. And it would have kicked in if he played a couple more games towards the end of last season, and that's exactly why they did not play him at all in the final month of the year. They literally just kind of let him rock because they're like, we don't want to lose you for nothing. If you lose your minor league option, then we have to DFA you because you don't make the team right out of camp or something. So I understood the logic. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's right for him, but nonetheless, that's the status regarding Ronnie Mauricio. And then when we talk about the others and guys like Brandon Waddell, he was always expected to be in the air in AAA for the Mets, like a Justin Hageman, a swingman arm that will be called upon in stretches by the Mets this year when they view is best to use him. And the others that were mentioned too is nothing that you're going to be losing sleep about or anything along those lines. So that's what you got, everybody, in regards to Ronnie Mauricio. Now let's go ahead and make sure that I don't miss any other comments I want to share with each and every one of you. It's going to be 1 second to go ahead and do exactly that. Yeah, I don't believe that I did here. So now that we broke down, apologies for the audio playing there. Now that we broke down all those key remarks and the roster moves for the New York Mets, let me end the show today with the following, because I promised you guys we would end the show by getting into my little interaction today, casually, with Tommy Pham, former Mets outfielder from the first half of the 2023 season. A lot of you guys are not Tommy Pham fans. I understand. He's very blunt. He is very much straightforward with how he approaches everything. He doesn't hold anything back, Tommy Pham. And to a degree, that's actually why I like the guy. And that's why I liked him to a degree when he was with the Mets, And let's get into this. So let's break it down here. So Tommy Pham has a back and forth. You see, initially it was posted yesterday. The Cardinals have to consider starting Jordan Walker at AAA, given how many other outfielders are MLB ready are deserving of regular play appearances. He has only one minor league option left. And Tommy Pham replies, who is more deserving and why? What metrics are you using? And then he says, Nelson Velasquez, outstanding spring, deserves a starting spot. Victor Scott II, swinging harder, could hit for more power. Nathan Church, swinging harder, had been awesome in spring. And Jordan needs regular reps, but other guys have been better and deserve regular MLB playing time. And Tommy says, I lost my job in 2017 to Jose Martinez, and you Mets fans remember Jose Martinez because the Mets signed Jose Martinez, and the first offseason under Steve Cohen entering the 2021 year went down with ailment and he never played in the bigs again. Jose Martinez because he had a great camp and I didn't. Who was the best player in the Cardinals of 2017? Me. I don't think spring training stats should cost you a job, but should give you a short leash in season, just my opinion. And I think he's 100% right. I think he's 1,000% right. And we have seen Pham not only talk about this, but this was my response to it, which I'd like to share with you guys because we ended up having a nice back and forth. And it's the following, as you guys can see here, okay? So I initially quoted this post and I said, this checks out. Tommy was the worst looking Mets hitter in 2023 spring training and went on to be one of their most valuable before he was traded to the Diamondbacks at the trade deadline that year. Tommy went out of his way to reply to this and say the following, spring training 2023, I was testing out new contact lenses from a company called iPrint, and it was my first time wearing them, and I needed a little time to adjust by the time spring training was about to end. I told Buck, I'm good and ready to go, and this is 100% accurate. I remember when this was going on with his contacts, and that was the main issue with him after the fact. So I replied to Tommy after that. I said, I remember that, and, I appreciate your time with the Mets, even though it was short. And he replied saying the following, I love New York. It really grew on me, and I appreciate the fans' love for the team. I had a lady stop me one time when I was eating at a diner and started talking baseball, which said a lot about New York fans. So shout out to Tommy Pham. Love to hear that. You know, I met Tommy before as well. I've said this story before. I may or may not have went out of my way to give him a firm handshake in a San Diego a club when the Mets were in San Diego in 2023. I have no reason to lie about this either. And I feel like if I just went out of my way to bring that up to him on X, he'd probably remember, because I guarantee I was the only one that went out of my way in that club to just talk to him and just say, you know, like, big fan, you know, Mets fan here, when he's just chilling, doing his thing, vibing in the club before he ultimately dipped. A little fun, a little wordy tangent there. But that's what I got for you guys. You guys can let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below regarding all the topics that we got into in this one. Thank you so much again for hanging out. Like and subscribe on your way out. And be on the lookout for more Mets consistent content all throughout the next week as we get set for opening day. We have some big announcements coming next week, too, to let you guys know exactly what to expect as we get to opening day. Until then, have a tremendous rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. And this is your guy, Wardy, signing out. Peace out, everybody. Have a great one.